In the spirit of the fast approaching holiday, here's 4 creepy Halloween stories to chill your bones. Get cozy and enjoy. Oh, and be sure you stick around for the bonus story. A few years ago, I went camping with some friends. It was over the Halloween weekend, and I thought it would be a nice change of pace from the ragers we usually went to every year. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small clearing in the woods, a campfire, a couple of tents, and plenty of beer. We weren't far from the nearest town, but once the sun set, it felt like we were in the middle of nowhere. The night was quiet, except for the occasional rustling of leaves in the breeze. We had polished off about 5 beers each, and I had a nice buzz going. We were trying to tell ghost stories, which wasn't really working. I don't think any of us are particularly gifted storytellers. So, we kinda just enjoyed the peace of the woods, and got closer to the fire as the night went on. But at around midnight, that peaceful quiet shifted into something else entirely. I was sitting by the fire when I heard something, a faint sound like twigs snapping in the distance. At first, I brushed it off as an animal, but the sound kept getting closer. It wasn't just the occasional snap, it was rhythmic, like footsteps. My friends were chatting away, oblivious, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the trees. I scanned the woods, but all I saw was darkness. That's when I noticed a pair of eyes, reflective, like in animals, but much higher off the ground than they should have been. I pointed it out to my friends, and the mood shifted immediately. The eyes didn't blink, didn't move, just stared at us. Then, in one smooth motion, they disappeared, like whatever it was had turned and vanished into the woods. My heart was pounding, but we tried to laugh it off. Probably just a deer, right? A few minutes later, the footsteps came back, but this time they were much closer. Too close. Before we could react, there was this horrible screech. Something I've never heard before, like a cross between a human scream and the cry of an animal. We grabbed our flashlights and shone them into the woods, but there was nothing. Just trees and darkness. We didn't stick around to find out what made the noise. We packed up and left that night, and to this day, I still have no idea what we encountered. Every once in a while, I swear I hear that same screech echoing in the back of my mind. Last Halloween, I went to a costume party at my friend's apartment. It was packed. People dancing, drinking, everyone in masks. I found my group of friends and started talking while looking at who all was there. I remember seeing a guy in the corner dressed in this creepy full-body clown costume. His mask covered his entire face, and he just stood there, not dancing or talking to anyone, just watching. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's Halloween, people dress and act weird, but every time I looked around, I'd see him. Always at the edge of the crowd, always watching me. After a while, I started to get freaked out, so I told my friends, but they just laughed it off, saying I was being paranoid. I asked my friend whose apartment it was about the guy. She told me he came with one of the groups of guys earlier and assumed he was with them. I shrugged it off and thought he must just be trying to scare me, or maybe he was too afraid to approach me. Whatever. When I went to leave, I walked through the dark parking lot alone. I could hear footsteps behind me, slow and clunky. I turned around and there he was, the clown. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was just the guy from the party playing a joke, but he kept following me, staying just far enough behind that I couldn't confront him. I sped up. So did he. I started running. So did he. I could hear his footsteps pounding against the pavement, getting closer. I fumbled with my keys, finally managing to get into my car just as he reached the door. I locked it, but he stood there, inches away, staring at me through the window. "What do you want?" I shouted. He didn't move. I drove off as fast as I could. The next morning, I woke up to find a note slipped under my door. It read, "See you next Halloween." When I was younger, my friends and I used to dare each other to explore this old abandoned house on the edge of town. It was the kind of place that had probably been beautiful once, but now it was just falling apart. Windows boarded up, paint peeling, the whole deal. People in town said it was haunted, but we never believed those stories. At least, not until the night we decided to actually go inside. It was Halloween, of course. We figured it would be fun to break in and explore the place. We climbed through a broken window and ended up in what must have been the living room. The place was trashed, furniture overturned, broken glass everywhere, but what struck me was how cold it was. It felt like the temperature dropped 20 degrees the moment we stepped inside. We wandered through the house, trying to scare each other with stupid pranks, but then we found the basement door. It was heavy, and when we pulled it open, this rush of cold air hit us like a wall. We went down, flashlights flickering, and that's when we found it. A small, empty room with a camera on a tripod set up in the middle. At first, we laughed. It looked like something out of a horror movie. But then one of my friends pointed out something I hadn't noticed. There were scratch marks on the walls, long and deep, like someone had been trapped down there, clawing to get out. The laughter stopped. We all felt it. The heaviness in the air, like something was watching us. My friend, being the idiot he is, walked over to the camera and reached out to touch it. As soon as he did, the door to the basement slammed shut. I screamed. We rushed up the stairs, but the door wouldn't budge. We banged on it, screaming for help, but there was no one there. Then, from the darkness behind us, we heard it. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming closer. The door finally gave way, and we ran out of that house without looking back. We never talked about what happened that night, and I don't plan on ever going back there, but every once in a while I hear rumors, people saying they've seen lights flickering in the windows or heard screams coming from the basement. I don't know what's in that house, but whatever it is, I hope it stays there. Why is it so common for people to not talk about it after they experience something scary? That would be all I want to talk about. I've never been one to believe in haunted objects. I mean, come on, it's just a thing, right? That was until I came across this doll. My friend's grandmother passed away, and while going through her things, she found this old porcelain doll. It was worn, the kind that would have been beautiful once, but now just looked like it came from a scary movie. She gave it to me as a joke, knowing that I'm not into creepy stuff like that. I put it on a shelf and didn't think much of it. But then strange things started happening. At first, it was small. Things going missing, like my keys or glasses. I'd find them later in odd places, like under the couch or in the laundry room, places I'd never put them. I figured I was just being forgetful, but then I started noticing the doll. It wasn't where I left it. Sometimes it would be facing the wrong direction, or it would be on a different shelf entirely. I lived alone, so no one else could have moved it. One night, I woke up to the sound of little taps. It was steady, almost like tiny footsteps. I got up to check out the noise, and as soon as I walked into the living room, there it was, the doll, sitting in the middle of the floor, staring right at me. I picked it up and threw it in a box, determined to get rid of it the next day. But when I woke up, the doll was back on the shelf, just where it had been before. I finally took it back to my friend's house, explaining what had been happening. She got this strange look on her face and told me her grandmother had always said the doll protected the house. I'm not sure what that means, and honestly, I don't really care. My friend hasn't told me anything weird, and I think I can finally start getting some decent sleep again. But I am a little worried to go looking for my car keys that I lost this morning. A few Halloweens ago, I got an invite to this underground party, the kind that moves locations every year, super exclusive. You only knew about it if someone passed you the details. It was being held at this abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town, so, of course, I was pretty excited. I DM'd a couple of my friends and they said they were going too. I pulled out my trusty V for Vendetta costume that I'd worn a few times over the years and started to get ready. When I arrived, the place was already packed. Everyone was in costume, and the mansion was decorated to perfection. Flickering candles, fog rolling through the halls, and eerie music echoing from every room. It felt off, though. Everyone was wearing masks, and no one was talking, just wandering through the rooms like they were waiting for something. I tried to mingle, but whenever I asked anyone a question, they just stared at me through their masks, their eyes blank. The music grew louder, more distorted, and that's when I realized I hadn't seen anyone I knew. Not one familiar face, even though I was sure some of my friends had been invited. Feeling uneasy, I made my way towards the exit, but when I got there, the door was locked. I tried the side doors, the windows. Everything was sealed. The music grew louder, more frantic, and the lights started flickering. People were gathering in the main hall, their masked faces all turned towards the center of the room where a large, old mirror stood. One by one, they walked up to the mirror, removing their masks and just staring into it. But when they removed their masks, their faces were gone. Just blank, smooth skin where their features should have been. I backed away slowly, but as I did, I felt a cold hand grab my wrist. I don't remember making it out of the mansion that night. Driving home, nothing. The next morning I woke up in my own bed, my memory hazy. I called one of my friends that I had DM'd the day before, and he had no idea what I was talking about. I went to get a screenshot of our chat, but the messages weren't even there. I have no idea what happened in that mansion, but sometimes when I pass a mirror, I see that smooth skin. If I actually stop and look, everything seems normal, but those passing moments in the corner of my eye, I swear the features of my face are missing.